Is it hot in here, or is it just this brand new Fateless merch? Ooh, look at this hoodie. It's got the Fateless logo on the chest, the Sisters of Fate on the forearms. Man, if only I had a way to cool down. Oh wait, I do, with this Fateless drinking glass. Ah, super refreshing. Get yours today at store.fateless.gg/discount/Adam10 to get 10% off all your Fateless merch orders. Welcome to the Adventures of Adam. I'm Adam. Let's adventure. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the topic of roguelike or roguelite, and as it pertains to Godforge. The most recent Fateless podcast did a deep dive into this subject themselves. I'm going to be breaking it down and taking topics from that podcast that I have very strong opinions about and letting you know how I feel. Let's get into it.
I want this to be very normalized because I want this to be competitive, and then the other side is like, well, I want this to be not normalized because I want to use my account and I want my resources to matter, and I want my characters to matter, and everything that I've done to have an impact. What are we designing this to do? What is a player? What part of the game does this fit into? And ultimately, like going back to what you're saying, like having very cool decisions that you have to make over and over and over again, and not just decisions that don't really matter, I think is the core of everything that you do. And that goes back to whether or not it was connected to my account, right? So like if all I have to do is play and then I get some meta progression, and then the next time I play, I'm just better at the game. Like, and that is part of the way these roguelikes work. Mm-hmm. But is that the design we want? Or is it, well, I play and then I go off and I do something else, I build my account and I come back and now I'm better and I can, and I get it for, right. So it's like, what are we looking for? And that's almost what I'm interested in, is like, what do you think a player what do you think we should be looking for?
In my most humble of opinions, I am of the firm belief that this game mode should be normalized, and your overall account progression should have no impact on this mode specifically. With all that said, I would be open to some form of meta progression within this game mode, a self-contained progression ecosystem within the normalized PvE game mode. So the progress you make in this game mode affects this game mode directly and nothing else. What's enticing about this mode is that players can experiment and play with champions or heroes, I guess, that they wouldn't normally have access to, and combine heroes together that they wouldn't normally have access to. And it forces players to be strategic in order to be successful. If your account's progression affects this game mode, what you could eventually do is just have it be such that your decisions don't matter. You don't have to be strategic, and you can just brute force your way through, like you may be able to do with every other type of PvE content in the game. This is your opportunity to make something that is interesting, unique, and that stands out and is apart from all the other PvE content in the game. Make something special.
We definitely want one normalized mode for launch. We want one, and we were kind of like back and forth around, should that be like the PvP type one, or should it just be like a roguelite or a roguelike? And we're kind of like toying between what would be that one feature that hits hardest when we launch. And I think because most of our player base say to us they prefer PvE instead of PvP, it feels like the PvE system would be the one that makes most sense.
As someone who is very fond of normalized PvP game modes, it kind of pains me to hear that they're considering to not launch the game with the normalized PvP. When I take a step back and think about it rationally rather than emotionally, it actually makes a lot of sense, because when the game launched, PvP will already effectively be normalized. When the game launches, everybody starts at 0. There's really no need for normalized PvP at that point. I think after 3 months or 6 months, perhaps, that's when you want to launch the normalized PvP, because as new players are coming into the game, they're just going to get stomped by the players who have already been playing for 3 months or 6 months or a year or however long it's been when you initially launched this game mode. At that point, it makes a ton of sense to me to be the perfect opportunity to launch a new content drop, and one that will help everybody compete on an even level.
And PvP, honestly, for that kind of like normalized mode, we'd much rather have live gameplay rather than async.
I understand the appeal of real-time PvP battles. I played Magic the Gathering for years. I get it. It's fun. But unfortunately, I don't play Magic anymore because I don't have time to sit down and play 1v1 in real time PvP. Same reason I don't really engage with the live arena and Raid Shadow Legends. I just don't have time. So if you do make a normalized PvP game mode, please have an asynchronous queue version as well for us filthy casuals who have real lives and can't just spend all day inside a video game. It would mean the world to me.
Here's a really cool roguelike thing, pound it out, try to get your rewards, and then it goes away for a bit while we rework it.
Well, how do you feel about that?
About exactly that as well. Yeah.
Okay, because that's going back to Hearthstone. I mean, they've played a lot of things, but like, yeah, Tavern Brawl was kind of their version of that. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Because that actually ended up spawning essentially its own game, right?
The Battlegrounds game.
Battlegrounds. I was like Battlefield. That's not right. Battlegrounds. It spawned its own game. So there's really interesting perspective of like testing new modes, new game modes and stuff like that. But I don't know. How would you feel? I mean, about like something coming in and then it's a 1 or 2 week period, and then it's like it might be 3 months before this. Maybe rotating something else, but.
To me, I think the Tavern Brawl-esque system for the normalized PvP actually sounds really cool. I think if you could apply a new rule set every week to change things up, that would be really cool and exciting. In terms of seasons, I'm thinking like maybe once a month, refresh the pool of champions that are available from the draft pool to keep things fresh that way. And when new exciting champions come out, or you're doing fusing events, the new champions that are getting added into the game have a boosted chance to be drafted in the normalized PvE mode. So everyone has a chance to draft these champions and experience them and see for themselves if they're worth going for. Build the hype. Make them say, I want to collect this champion on my account so I could use it in other PvE game modes or even PvP. To me, that sounds great. I'd love to see something like that.
I would want some sort of drafting phase in some way to try crazy things and share it with your clan and all that kind of stuff.
I agree with Brad 100%. Drafting in these style of games is the most exciting part. You are given limited options. You have to look at each option, choose the one that you think is going to be best based on the information you have available, whether that's what you've already chosen or what you know is likely to appear for you in the future. Being able to adapt and overcome is the core to these style of games. That's what makes them fun. That's what makes them interesting. And that's what sets the good players apart from the bad players.
Should it end? Right. So like what's your stance on infinitely running until you die versus X number, 30 levels or 20 levels or 20 or 15, whatever it is, X number of places where there's an end result?
In my opinion, I think there should be a definitive end. There's something just satisfying about completing it. It gives you that satisfaction. I beat this game mode. However, I do also think it would be cool to have it such that once you've actually beaten this game mode, you unlock unlimited mode. I think that would be really interesting. And the people who care less about beating it and feeling satisfied that they've overcome something, they could instead shoot for the high scores on the leaderboard. And to me, that just sounds like it'd be a lot of fun.
Ultimately, there needs to be a leaderboard for it to be competitive. And then you've got this kind of like back and forth with your buddies that I'm sitting number 4. This was my run. And people to go in and see what you did and be like, oh, crap. I didn't expect that to be the direction, but cool. Like they're sitting amongst the top group.
I definitely agree with Simon here. One of the things, in my opinion, that makes Clan Boss and Raid Shadow Legends so compelling is that you're constantly able to try to push further into the fight and constantly up your damage, and you can see run to run how you are improving each day or each month or each week. Not only that, but you get put on a leaderboard inside your clan. You can see how much damage you did in comparison to your clanmates, and you can talk smack amongst them. Like, oh, I did more damage than you today. Or maybe if they do more damage than you can be like, oh yeah, but you had to use these legendaries. Look at my team. I got 2 epics and 3 uncommons or whatever. Like seeing the leaderboard, seeing how you did compared to your clanmates every day, and it's also seeing that personal progression, getting higher and higher scores incrementally, seeing yourself improve is very satisfying. And I love that about Clan Boss. And I would love to see that in this normalized PvE game mode.
For those that want to play it a lot, if you just want to play it, do one run and done, and then you get your weekly reward, and that's your style, because it's not really your game mode, then it doesn't mean you've got to put tons of time and effort in to sort of grind it out every week. So there's a bit of balance there. But if it's something you just enjoy, then you go again.
I absolutely love this line of thinking from Simon. Calling back to Hearthstone, which they've brought up a number of times in this podcast, it's just like in Hearthstone, there are many players who are exclusively arena players, and there are players who are exclusively constructed players, and there are players who are exclusively battlegrounds players. Like, they've got all these different game modes in the game for people to engage with the way they choose to, but they don't necessarily force you to do it constantly. You have the choice as a player to engage with the game the way that you want. And I think that's really cool about Hearthstone. And I'd love to see that in Godforge as well. How
long does you think it needs to be from, okay, it's been solved, to, okay, there's new characters and there's new stuff that you can find kind of in a roguelike?
I think it depends entirely on how interesting and diverse the game mode itself is, and how many champions you have in the pool from which you can draft from. If it's like a pool of 100 at a time, you could probably go a whole month. Or if it's like a more limited pool of like 50 champions, maybe you upgrade it or refresh it like once every 2 weeks, something like that. Ultimately, it's just going to depend on how deep and diverse the game mode itself is, and how quickly it can be that runs start to feel more samey, or more similar to your previous run. As long as each run has the capacity to feel wildly different from your previous runs, I think you can go a much longer length of time before you upgrade and refresh, continue to iterate on what's available in the game mode.
How are you guys feeling about a limited pool? Because that was another thing that was brought up. Like, well, what if it was like a limited, like talking about the seasonal idea, you got a limited pool of characters, and maybe they're normalized, maybe they're not, whatever, but there's certain characters that just literally cannot come in. Mm-hmm. How do you feel? Are you like, oh my god, that's BS, I pulled this amazing champion and now I can't use it? Like, are you in that camp, or are you like, no, that's cool?
I am of the opinion that a person's champion roster should not influence what is available in the normalized PvE mode anyway, so I'm all for having a limited pool of who can or cannot be used in this game mode. In fact, I think it makes it more interesting and easier for you guys to keep it fresh by cycling through the pool of champions who are available to be drafted for this game mode. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I will see you all in another video soon, but until next time, everyone, take care.